Hello and welcome to video 10 of Life Unlimited, 10 Steps to Real Change. And what I'm going to focus on in this video is step 8, which is about connection with others. It's a very important step as far as this Life Unlimited. Very absolutely key to our well-being to have good connected relationships with other people. I've focused, as you know, on relationship with self up until now, and I've put connection with other people here, even though it's so key to our well-being and happiness in this life unlimited, because we need to have a good, connected, full understanding of who we are first, have that loving relationship internally with ourselves, as I say, know who we are, and then that makes relationships with others much easier in terms of connection with them. I'm going to talk in a minute about the adverse effects that dominant threat and dominant reward have on our relationships with others. So absolutely the first thing that we need to do, and which we have been doing for these videos, is making sure that things work internally in the way that I would want them to. So, really strengthening that guide, making sure that connection is largely what's brought forward, that I'm using my imagination creatively, that I'm enjoying myself, that I'm managing my thoughts, feelings, body and behaviour in a way that's in my best medium to long term interests. And once that's all in place and working the way I want it to, that will naturally flow out to other people. So that's why I put connection with others here. Very key point, but needs to be a bit later down the line in terms of the work that we've done. Because, as I say, looking out to others and connections with others to outward in put me in a place of connection. If I'm not in that place internally, isn't going to work. So we need to do that internal work first, which is what we've been doing. So the first thing that we need to do is to do an inventory and make conscious where people are for you in your life. As you know, we've done in the past an inventory of values, beliefs, emotional needs. So really making conscious those parts in our lives. And now we need to make conscious who is around us and what role they play in our lives. Are they relationships where we're largely in connection with self and others? What are the dynamics in those relationships? Are they parent-child dynamics? Are they definitely adult to adult? Are those relationships in the shape that we would want them to be? We're talking about romantic relationships here, friendships, also family relationships. And very importantly, as understanding based on what I've said in the past, are those relationships in a place that regulates your nervous system? Do those people and being in relationship with them regulate your nervous system? I.e., do they help you to feel in that calm and alive place, that warm, connected and safe place? Of course, threat is going to be part of a relationship with somebody. We're ebbing and flowing all the time, connecting and disconnecting all the time internally, and so are other people. So it's not possible to be in connection the whole time. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what we're expecting of relationships. It's just that more often than not, if we want to be in this place of connection more with self, are the people around us helping us to do that? Are they reflecting back our worth and value? Very importantly, are we reflecting back their worth and value too? Is it characterized by love, the relationship, these loving qualities that I was talking about earlier? And also looking at whether substances are involved in the relationship. Sometimes we don't know whether we actually like the person if we're drunk and high when we spend time around them. Maybe it's the alcohol and the drugs or whatever else we're doing. If it's competition, for example, we spend a lot of time competing or playing sport with other people. Do we actually like them or do we like the competition? Do we like the high that we get from winning? Not to make those things wrong, it's just making conscious, what it is that we're getting from relationships. What are other people for in our lives at the moment? What role are they playing? And is that the role we want them to play? Is that what we want to be getting from relationships? Just to say something quickly about the effect of dominant threat and dominant reward on connections with other people. As you can imagine, I think it's potentially catastrophic. If you're looking at the biases I've already talked about, going into an environment where I might believe because of dominant threat that I'm not likable, because I therefore go in feeling anxious. Other people see that I'm disconnected. They might think it's because I don't like them, so they disconnect, and then I believe I'm not likable because they've disconnected. So and then I reinforce that story that I have in my head that I'm not likable or that other people are untrustworthy by selecting. My brain will only be selecting information that fits with that distressing story. So, the combination of the negativity bias, the confirmation bias really are potentially catastrophic. And if I don't trust other people, I'll be reactive around them, and it will be painful being around them. So I can get into this situation if dominant threat is around that people are hell. When I'm talking about what other people are for, what we would hope for, and what other people absolutely can be for in life for us, is to help us to regulate ourselves. But that's really not what happens if there's dominant threat around often. Sometimes it will happen, but perhaps more often than not, there's complaint, there's criticism, there's hurt feelings, there's talking about others rather than to them, struggles to communicate, all these things. So getting close to others means pain sometimes, and that's often, as I've explained, carrying on from that early attachment, the trauma that came with the early attachment to people, that was characterized by not getting my needs met and not having clear communication. So I just sort of carry that on through life. I've talked about, if we're in threat, it's not the place of empathy for self, and therefore often not the place of empathy for others. That's not what our imagination is used for, to imagine what it's like in other people's shoes. So I can think a lot about, if I'm in dominant threat, the effect and impact of other people on me, but not that much about how I'm impacting them, which isn't great for relationships again. As far as reward, people can be treated as a means to an end rather than as an end in themselves. So they might be in my life because of the status that they have, because of the money that they have, if you're looking at that sort of status reward part. Also, of course, enabling drug and alcohol use. I might have people in my life because they use drugs and alcohol, and that suits me because that's what I want to continue to do. If I speak to people who would say that they're addicted or dependent on cocaine, for example, they will often say that everybody that they know uses coke. If I speak to somebody who doesn't use cocaine or is not addicted or dependent on cocaine, they will say they know very few people who use coke. So you can see how we'll naturally gravitate towards people, if there is this dominant reward place of addictions and dependencies, naturally gravitate towards people who do that too. So do we actually like them? Are we enjoying spending time around them, or is it actually the behaviour or substance that we're enjoying the use of? And as I say as well, in the context of dominant reward and status and money, do we actually like the person themselves and their values and who they are and how we feel around them, or do we like the money that they have, their generosity, their big house, whatever that might be, their fame? And of course, we can choose to have whoever we want in our lives. It's just being conscious about who and why we're spending time around people. If we want to be more in this place of calm and alive and connection with self and others, let's just be conscious about the dynamics and as I say, who we're spending time in relationship with. So because dominant threat is fear-based, tendency to anger or hopeless and helpless, there can be a lack of trust. We can go between a fear of confrontation because we fear somebody else's anger, or we can get too confrontational if we sit more in anger than we do in fear when we're in dominant threat, so we can go between the two. We can escalate arguments because we struggle to control and buffer that anger part of us. We can reactively go quite quickly to rupture, which means we have to keep repairing things, or we don't repair. I've talked about how in dominant threat we don't have a great sense of ourselves and who we are. In that situation, we may therefore only exist through the eyes of another, really, which makes us very dependent on their comments, on their validation or otherwise. So if there's criticism coming in from them and I have very little idea of actually who I am, and certainly in dominant threat, no concept of my worth and value, quite the opposite, I will be diminishing myself often, then if somebody does say something which is critical, that goes straight in and has a huge effect on me. So one of the main reasons for looking at knowing myself in these past videos, is to make sure, as I say, that when I get into relationship with other people, I know who I am, so I can discriminate against opinions and comments that are coming in. I know what I'm standing on. If somebody says that I'm arrogant or selfish or whatever, I have an understanding of that, and I know in my own mind whether that's the case or not. Now, of course, we still have to listen to other people. It's important to hear other people's feedback. We have sort of blind spots in terms of our experience and who we are. But often people will project onto us their own difficulties and distress. So I need to, as I say, have a very firm, grounded understanding of who I am when I'm in relationship with other people. And hopefully what's been happening in the past videos is that's been growing for you. So we can couple a belief that other people can't be trusted with an actual dependency on their input. Because I can't bring this place of love and nurturing and support internally, because that's not happening internally, I'm very dependent on other people to do that. But of course, with dominant threat around, I don't trust them either. So we can really get caught in something very difficult here. I will also, because I haven't got a part internally, that connection part grounding my worth and value, and I've got the dominant threat part telling me that things are problematic and pointing out flaws and problems, I'm going to preoccupy about what other people think about me potentially if dominant threat's around. The competition part of reward might be doing the same thing. You know, survival does mean being part of a group, which I'm going to come on to saying. So you can understand why it's an important part of our psyche to think about what other people think about us, to worry about what other people think about us. The difficulty is if dominant threats around and also this reward status part, we might be doing this all the time and changing the things that we do and want to do internally, not doing the inward out in life just because we worry about what other people think, not what they say, not what they actually express to us, but what they're thinking about us. So we might actually be adapting things that we do, the people that we're around, the choices we make in life because of what we worry about somebody else thinks, which we can't even see anyway. So you can see how difficult this dominant threat place can make relationships here. Concepts of normal, weird are really high up there for somebody when dominant threats are around. Survival, as I say, means being part of the group. So I might change my behaviour and adapt my behaviour in order to look normal, whatever that might mean. People pleasing, I think people pleasing is a really good thing. You know, if we're going to fit as part of groups and connect with other people, we need to be able to please them. So people pleasing of itself is a helpful asset in relationship with other people. The trouble here is when I'm pleasing people or have to please people at my own expense, or what I'm doing is having to get everybody to like me, which is going to be impossible. The threat part will focus on trying to get the people who don't like us and possibly never will to like us. So it means that I'm not spending time around those people that do actually like me. And of course, also, if what I'm spending my time doing is trying to get other people to like me all the time, what I'm not doing is working out whether I like them. So going back to dropping inside to my feelings and what I feel about people and what I feel when I'm around people, it's very important to know whether who I like. If we're looking for this like-minded tribe of people, I have to be noticing the effect that those people around me are having on me, so I can choose who I'm going to be around to get my nervous system regulated or have fun or whatever it might be. So people pleasing, one of the main problems with it, if we're trying to get everybody to like us, is we lose our sense of our own needs and wants. And then you can see if people are hell, if that's what we find around others, if we get irritated, if there's constant complaint, if there's lots of rupture in relationship, we will tend to isolate ourselves to protect ourselves. Or that threat part will say it's protective and health and safety to stay away from people. And in that situation, we may get codependent on a partner, for example, or a family member, or even a child. And that increased isolation just increases the anxiety, leaves us less safe psychologically, and that increased anxiety then makes us more reactive, less likely to trust people, etc., etc. So it's that vicious circle, unfortunately, that we can get into in this dominant threat place. So, if some of those have been a part of life for you, how are we going to change that now? What are the beliefs that we need to hold in mind, those sort of headline beliefs about other people that we need to hold in mind when we're going into relationships with others? And I would say there are 4 things here, 4 headlines that I would say to hold in mind. The first is that other people are one of the greatest sources of safety, connection, and reward in your life. So meeting those 3 needs, what I've been talking about in the past is largely meeting those needs yourself for safety, as far as your internal relationship, for reward, for also for connection. Let's also add that other people are going to be one of the greatest sources of this connection place. Good social relationships balance your nervous system. That's evolution. So the second one here is that we have evolved, because we're stronger together, to feel good in relationship with other people. And with my understanding of feeling good, the way I've looked at it, as you know, in the past, is that it balances our nervous system to have good relationships. And I'll come on to what that means, as far as it's not a numbers game, it's a quality of relationship that we're talking about here. So we want to be able to self-soothe, which is what we've been looking at in the past, as far as relationship with self, getting myself into that calm and alive place, and also soothe in relationship with others, so feel good in relationship with others. If you grew up in an environment, the sort that I've described in earlier videos, where somebody was frightening, addicted, switched off, we were not able to soothe ourselves or feel good or get into that calm and alive place in relationship with other people, and we may have carried that on through life. So it's very important to be able to do both. So if people have been self-soothers all their life, mainly self-soothers, and kept out of relationship and not trusted other people, we're going to add to that now a capacity to also soothe in relationship with other people, to choose who we can trust, to go towards those people, to add them into life, these new connections, create these new relationships, or even deepen existing relationships, so that we have even more sources of connection and love in our lives. So the fourth one, you deserve to get a healthy proportion of your emotional needs met through a combination of connections with yourself, which is what I've been focusing on up until now, as I say, others, which is what we're looking at now, and I have mentioned all the way through, and your community. So when I was talking about emotional needs and what they are, feeling part of a wider community, which involves, a number of other people, is really important and very helpful from the point of view of keeping us in connection and helping us to feel safe, rewarded and connected. So 3 aspects here, mainly focused on self, because that's the one that's largely within our control, then others, and also this wider community. So I talk a lot in my book about others. There's quite a detailed chapter on it, but what I'm drawing out here for the rest of the video is 10 to remember. So I've taken out 10 principles here from the book, the main ones that seem to keep coming up with my client work and when people talk about relationships with others and the difficulties there. So I'm going to spend the rest of the video focusing on these 10 things to hold in mind around other people, which is hopefully going to be helpful for you. The first is that we just need to love and be loved by a few good people. There can be a big emphasis as far as social media now, and also, I suppose, for any of us, as far as feeling part of a group and popularity, on numbers and having quantity of relationships. I would put much more emphasis on the quality of relationships. We just need to love and be loved by a few good people. So we're looking at people that share your values here, your like-minded tribe. You may have spent a lot of time around people because of growing up having taken in other people's values and things that seem to suit other people, and taken those in and on around people that don't share your values, around people that don't help you to feel good, as I say. So it is very important, I'm going to come on to that in the next step, that it is love that you're experiencing and to be aware of that. But what we're looking at here is probably, in order to maintain them and have the depth of relationship and intimacy of relationship and the time that takes, it's probably going to be a few relationships that you have in your life. What some people do as far as codependence is to focus on one person, their romantic relationship, and look for that person to meet their needs, which, as I say, is problematic because it's really putting all our eggs in one basket. It's not possible for one other person to meet all of our emotional needs from others. And obviously a codependent relationship is often characterized by complaint, criticism, jealousy, anger. So it hurts. So it is a few people that we do need in our life here. Just looking at the people-pleasing aspect of this, there is the rule of 10. If you're in a room with 10 people, 3 people are going to like you, 3 people will be neutral, and then another couple will dislike you. So let's focus, if we're looking at a few good people, to love us, on the people that like us. As I say, threat will preoccupy because it's survival, because it's problem focused on those people that don't. It is not necessary that everybody likes you in the world. It is not possible. You don't like everybody that you meet. So let's just make sure that we invest in and focus our attention on and move our attention to, if we're going to stay in that place of connection, on the people that we like and love and that love us. So this phrase of conscious coupling has been, well, it's actually conscious uncoupling that's been around a lot, as far as coming out of a relationship with somebody and making sure that we do that in a way that's not chaotic for us. I would also hope that when we go into relationship with other people, that we do it consciously, that we know what it is about them that we like. I might say to somebody, if they're spending time around them a lot, but they're complaining about them, what do you like about them? And sometimes people will say that there isn't anything that they like about them, but they remain in relationship. It could be continuing some sort of trauma bond there from early experience. So we really need to make sure, if we're going to couple and be in relationship with somebody and spend time around them, and we ourselves want to be more in that place of connection with self and others, that we are conscious of their qualities, our qualities, the dynamics and how it's working, and that is in a place that we want it to be. So, step 2, know what connected relationships are. When I'm saying a few good people to love me, is it love that's actually happening there? This goes back to what I was talking about in earlier videos about love of self. So have a look at those qualities that I was suggesting, and ones that you may have come up with about what love means and what are the qualities of love and connection. Are those being demonstrated in your relationships with other people? As I say, it's not possible all the time, and there may be people that you have in your life just for the fun of it. There may be people that you spend time around, that you need to spend time around for whatever reason, and you don't actually like them very much, but you have to spend time around, as I say, for other reasons. It's just being conscious of it. If most of the time you spend time around people you don't like, or who tease you, or you don't feel good around, or who demean you, even if it's in humour, just be aware that that's not going to feel good. That's not the place of connection. And if we want this place more, if we want this life unlimited, and to feel good about ourselves and to ground ourselves in our worth and value, and to be doing that a lot, we need to make sure other people can see that too. Other people are reflecting back our worth and value more often than not too. Just to mention the 4 horsemen here, it's signs that the relationship is at an end, whether that's romantic, friendship. I think it's mainly in the context of romantic relationships, but this idea that if the relationship is characterised by criticism, complaint, stonewalling, or defensiveness, that's a problem, that the relationship will probably end. It is interesting to me that we need to be able to have the 4 horsemen, so that we need to be told that if a relationship is characterised by those 4 things, then there's a problem. Why would that not be self-evident? Why would we be thinking and going on in a relationship which is critical, where there are complaints, where somebody else is being defensive a lot, or we're stonewalling? But I think the reason for that is, as I say, we can get used to those kind of relationships in early experience. And also, I think we have a natural tendency, because of that threat part, to turn against or to find problems in whatever we're in relationship with a long time, whether that's friends or romantic relationships or family. So just make sure that when we're in relationship with other people, if we want to remain in that connected place more, that we're really working at showing those loving, connected qualities. And that, as I said with that Chuck Spezzano quote, if it hurts, it's not love. Number 3, what other people think about you is none of your business. So, this might sound a bit harsh. I think it was a quote from Mother Teresa, but the point about it, as I've said, that dominant threat place, the threat place preoccupies about what other people think, worries about what other people think, assumes critical judgments from other people, because we don't have a grounded sense of our worth and value, so we're very quick to assume that other people are going to dislike us or criticise us. As well, the competition part of reward, goes for status, that other people have to respect us, fame, notoriety, both of those, big drivers for worrying about what other people think about us, and actually with threat, assuming that it's going to be critical. The thing that I would say here is, let's try and manage that part. Talking in the past, it's intrusive, it's automatic. Of course, it's going to step forward, that the comparisons are going to step forward. I'll talk about comparisons in a minute too, but being concerned about what other people think. As far as remaining in connection, it's part of survival, it's going to be helpful, but some people are dominated by it. It's all they can think about, it's all they preoccupy about, it's all they talk about. Let's say here that we'll give it some attention, thank you reward, thank you threat, for raising this issue, but what we're going to focus on mostly is about our wants and needs, who we like, who we're going to sustain relationships with, who we're going to invest time in. We're going to spend more time dropping inside and looking at our experience and going out to the world with that, rather than spending our time preoccupying about what somebody else says about us behind our back. I have no control over what somebody says when I'm not there. I'm never going to hear it anyway. As I said, if somebody explicitly expresses something to me, then it's very important that I take that into account and listen to that and try and understand where they're coming from. But we're talking about what other people think here. So invisible, and we don't even know whether it's happening anyway. Other people's projections, just holding in mind here that how people respond to you is often based on their own psyche. So that what they think of a man of my age, my skin colour, the way I speak, whether I remind them of somebody they really liked, whether I remind them of somebody they didn't like, a lot of how other people treat us is to do with their projections onto us, is to do with how they see us based on their past life and experience. So going from hero to zero to somebody because I trigger that amygdala part of them, that fight or flight part, even if I don't do that intentionally, which most often it won't be intentionally, just because I go to from hero to zero for them doesn't mean that I am either. I just need to make sure that if I'm acting in accordance with my values, and we're making those values more conscious, if I'm acting in accordance with my values and what's important to me, that other people are going to have their responses to that. But if I'm comfortable with it, of course, as I say, we're always going to need to listen to others and take in their advice potentially. But the most important opinion about me and who I am and what I'm doing is my opinion about me. As long as I'm comfortable with what's happening, as long as I'm conscious of what I'm doing and why and what my values are and my behaviour, which these videos up until now have hopefully been helping with, then let's just move on with life, do the things that I want to do, be creating the things that I want to, be connecting with the people that I want to, going out to the world, cultivating, planting seeds, growing those seeds, and let other people process their response to that. Number 4, so helping others and accept their kindness. I've said in the past about the importance, getting in connection with self and others, of helping others. And as I say, accepting their kindness too. That threat place will often say that I'll be a burden to other people if I ask them for help or if I tell them about my problems. If we're looking at connected relationships and love, intimacy, so showing your a fuller range of who you are, your feelings. So being able to trust people is a really important part of these connected relationships that we're going to be looking for. So helping other people, accepting their kindness, as I say, is a win-win. It feels good to help others and other people feel good helping us, and that works vice versa. So let's try and make that a part of life as much as we can from this point on. Number 5, always competing is always disconnected. Going back to this sort of dominant reward point, if all I'm trying to do all the time is be superior to other people, I'm always disconnected from them. If I'm always trying to win, have more, higher status, better promotion, bigger house, newer car, whatever it might be, fitter body, again, those things being part of life is absolutely fine. It's just if they dominate in relationship, and if that's what's happening all the time, I'm always disconnected and therefore not having these connected relationships which are going to be largely regulating me and keeping me in this calm and alive place. As far as comparisons, which are part of the competition as well, what we will often do is compare our internal experience to somebody else's external appearance. So if you're looking at that dominant threat, that depressed place, we often come off less favourably because we're doing that. A lot of people will walk into environments with a big smile, and we're noticing that we're feeling anxious, so they look very comfortable, they look happy, and if we look, comparing ourselves to them in that situation, we might think that we're not doing this as well. But as I say, let's try not to compare somebody else's appearance on social media, somebody's external appearance in a social environment with what's happening for us internally, because we can't see what their internal experience is, just like they can't see ours. So, somebody's saying that let's not compare the movie of our life with the trailer of somebody else's, if you're looking at the kind of things that people put up on social media, for example. Only try to compare yourself with you in the past. So this whole journey through these videos is about looking at, preferred ways of doing things, if there are things we've been doing which we would like to be different. And of course, spending a lot of time grounding the great and the good about us, which is absolutely there, which I hope is something that you've been seeing as you've been going through these videos. But let's just, if we're looking at comparisons, we have no idea what's going on internally for somebody else in their life. Yes, we might look at the externals and it looks absolutely fine, but you've got no idea what's happening for them internally when they're inside that house or in that relationship with that other person. So let's try and take attention away from preoccupying about others, noodling around them, what might they think of me, I wonder what their life is like, they're so lucky, whatever that might be, and bring that attention back inwards, drop inside and look at planting my own seeds, watering my own seeds. What is it that I want from life? Who do I want to be around? What is the future that I want? So moving on to 6, you get what you give. So if we give out anger, if we give out fear, that tends to be what comes back. If I am reactive around other people in annoyance and irritation, they of course have their amygdala too. So that's intrusive and automatic. So if I trigger other people, they of course have to take responsibility for their responses. But if I come at people from this dominant threat place, from that sort of coldness and irritation and annoyance, then that tends to be what I get given back. So if I go towards people demonstrating these loving qualities, that tends to be what will come back from other people. People remember you. Of course, they remember what you think and they remember what you do, but mostly they remember you for what they feel around you. And if you are empathetic and sensitive, kind, boundaried, honest, forgiving, patient, then that tends to be what comes back from others. If we help other people to feel good, they'll be grateful for that. If we, compliment them and reflect back their worth and value in language, then that tends to be what comes back from others. Of course, everybody's different, everybody's completely unique, but there are similarities around human beings, and one of those similarities is that love feels good, whoever you are. So let's consciously be in connection around other people when we are in relationship with them. And then moving on to 7, just carrying on from this, treat your loved ones with the same respect as you would a stranger. What can happen is we say sorry to a stranger who bumps into us, but do not apologise to a partner who we've been verbally abusive to. So you can see that there's a real distortion with, I think, that threat place, which says that for survival, I know this stranger might be dangerous, so I'm going to apologise to them. But as far as my survival, I don't need to apologise to my partner for being abusive or demeaning. But actually, if we're looking at this place of connection with self and others, our happiness, our medium to long-term happiness, and even our short-term, is significantly dependent on, or far more dependent on, a romantic partner or friends or family than it is on a stranger. So let's, as far as our responses to people, reflect that fact in how we deal with them. When we are talking to our loved ones and in relationship with our loved ones, let's make sure that our body language reflects the fact that we love them. If a stranger came into your house, most of us would not pick up our phone whilst they were talking to us and search something on the internet or check social media. Let's give them our full attention. Let's show them with our body, with our facial expressions, that we love them and that we're in relationship with them. Again, we can't be doing this all the time. I understand that. We're going to pick up our phone sometimes. There are going to be things that we need to do. But I'm just saying, more often than not, if you want a relationship to be connected and loving, we need to show that to them with our body. We need to show that to somebody with our facial expression as well. So looking at them face on, and we know that the phones, laptops are exits from relationship. They are coming out of relationship with somebody. Our relationship is with whatever's on the phone or on the laptop. And for connected relationships with other people, let's do our best to maintain bodily a relationship and to be listening. Again, if we are on our phones, we're not listening to what somebody else is saying. And people, which I'm going to go on to next, really just want to be seen and heard. We all just want to be seen and heard by others. That's the most significant and profound thing you can do for another person. And we can't do that whilst we're watching the television or whilst we are on our phones. And as I say, this is all about balance. We're going to need to do those things sometime. I'm just talking about more often than not. Again, going back to this thing that love is a verb, a doing word. So how are we showing somebody that we love them? So moving on to that, number 8, people just want to be seen and heard. So empathy and validation here. Often when somebody comes to us and says about a difficulty that they're having, we might have a tendency to give advice. I often would hear women say that about men. And advice can be very helpful. If you've got something to offer, that's great. This isn't an either or thing. Also, though, just hold in mind that, as I say, often what somebody else wants is just for us to listen to them so that they can express what's happening for them and move through it. When I was talking about toxic positivity, it's that tendency to say that somebody shouldn't cry or shouldn't be angry about something or shouldn't be fearful about it. And if you get stuck in those things because we're not allowed to express them, as I've talked about that in relationship with self, but this is in relationship with other people, then they don't move through it. Of course, if something is going on constantly, somebody's in depressed cycles or addictive cycles, and that's all they're preoccupying about, then to the extent we can do something or say something that's going to help or offer advice to change that, let's do that at some point. The same thing with our internal experience, allowing ourselves to feel all the various feelings and experiences and also doing what we can to help us. One of the key things to hold in mind with other people is when they're talking to us, they just want to be seen and heard. So to say to them, I can see that you're upset or sad about that, and I can understand why. That's often as much as people need. If you're looking at therapy and what people get from therapy, what therapy does, I think one of the main things it does is facilitate somebody else to be able to feel their feelings. We don't give advice, we don't try and change what somebody's feeling, we just offer a space, a non-judgmental space in which they're able to express that, and we might reflect it back in language that we can see that they're distressed about it, and again, empathy, we can understand why they're distressed about it. And that is so powerful because it's often not what has happened for people in the past. So it's such a different experience, but we can offer that to anybody that we're around, whether that's family, friends, whoever it is. So as I say, we don't have to solve other people's problems often. If we can give advice, great. If we can intervene with other people, if it's addictions and things, then I'm not suggesting we all the time play this completely sort of passive role around others, but I'm saying actually empathy and validation is a very active thing to do and actually facilitates somebody's improvement and moving through things. So number 9, celebrate and honour the value of other people to you. This threat place is very much about focusing on problems, flaws, as I've said. Reward is about things never being enough. Neither of them are really the place of acknowledging the worth and value of somebody else to us. In the previous videos, I've been talking about acknowledging our worth and value to ourselves, grounding the great and the good about us. So let's also, once we're doing that, hopefully it becomes easier, and you may do this anyway, but if it's not the case, to ground other people's worth and value to you. So remembering birthdays, if they say they have an appointment for something or a job interview, to remember those things and to check on them to make sure that see how those things went. Again, if you do that, people are being seen by you, and it has a very significant effect on other people. It's very powerful if you remember details about them and if you reflect that back to them. So we are giving ourselves compliments, we are grounding ourselves here. So again, hopefully that will also go out to other people too. This isn't about manipulation or flattery, it's just about being able to ground other people's worth and value to us, the things that we see, that we like about them, that we love about them, making sure that that's something that is part of the relationship if we want to remain in this place of connection with self and others. Because as I say, the dominant threat place will take for granted other people, take for granted their presence in our lives and the things that they add to our lives. This phrase, you don't know what you've got till it's gone, is around, I think, because our natural state is, as I say, to take for granted who's in our lives to find problems with who's in our lives, not because there's something wrong with them or there's something wrong with us, but just because of this threat place, our natural tendency to focus on the problems and the flaws and the deficits in both ourselves and other people. So let's not take people for granted. Let's deliberately try to connect with them and show them their worth and value to us. And again, if we do that to other people, that gets paid back and gets fed back too. So we get other people will have more tendency to reflect back our worth and value to us, and you can just see how that goes round and round and round to keep us more in this place of connection with self and others. And I would suggest here to watch banter, sarcasm and humour as well. A lot of us we might have grown up with anger being sort of masked in humour, playing the fool to get away with murder. So humour, even though I'm smiling, even though somebody else is smiling, I might be saying that thing because I'm angry about something and I'm trying to communicate that message. And it's just not a good way of communicating whether I have a difficulty with something. I'm going to come on in the next video, the final video, in a part of that is to talk about how to communicate where we're in distress about something with another person. And I just don't think humour is a good way. So let's look at how we're using humour and be conscious of that. A lot of sarcasm around other people, going for their Achilles heel, working on that, laughing at them, making them the butt of a joke. Again, I'm not telling you how you should behave in groups. I'm just saying that even though somebody might be smiling, even though that you're smiling, I just don't think the intention is connection there all the time. So it's just being conscious about it again. And then finally, hold in mind there's nobody in this world that you can't live without. 1 to 9 are all about maintaining relationships and how to maintain that connection. But if somebody's in dominant threat, I mean, they may break relationships too quickly, but they may also stay in relationship because there's been a trauma bond, and this reminds them of the trauma bond. It's familiar for them, may stay in relationships which hurt for long periods of time, expecting something to be better, hoping something's going to be better, perhaps believing that they don't deserve anything more, they've got a distressing story that relationships hurt anyway and that men can't be trusted or women can't be trusted, whatever it is. So they remain. So the thing to hold in mind here is that love, which you would hope is the quality of friendships, romantic relationships, family relationships, isn't meant to hurt. It's meant to, more often than not, feel good. If something isn't feeling good, let's try and communicate to the other person what it is that we have a difficulty with and how it could be different, how their behaviour could be different, and listen to other people if they're doing the same with us. Everyone has the ability to change and to do things differently. I completely believe in that as a therapist. You can see with the videos that I've done here, I absolutely believe that in relation to you, me, all human beings. That's an ability to change. The thing is that some people aren't willing to change, and they will live a life just doing the things that they do, not taking responsibility. And we don't have to remain forever in relationship with somebody and invest our time, our precious time on this earth in someone who is not willing to do things differently, who we're always living in hope for doing something different, to love us in the way we would like to. Some people are better left untrusted. It's like going to B&Q for carrots to expect empathy and warm love from somebody. It's interesting that empaths will often couple up with narcissistic people. They have those complementary qualities which, if you combine them, probably work quite well in relationship with other people. One person does the feeling and the sensitivity and the empathy, and the other person does the drive, whatever the narcissist does. But I also think that some of those empaths project onto narcissists that they believe that somewhere there's this place of empathy, that somewhere at some point in the future these loving, kind, gentle qualities are just going to break through. Perhaps that will be the case. As I say, everybody can do things differently. Empathy can be learnt and is absolutely a skill that we can learn through life. But for some people, I don't think that chip of empathy is in the brain. That kindness, compassion is just not there. And if they're not willing to develop it, then it will never be there. So if that's the situation, then at some point we need to move on sometimes from relationships. So let's bear in mind that we always have that power. Ultimately, there is nobody in this world that we can't live without. And that also means, hopefully, that we don't feel trapped in something too, because that's the place of depression, where agency over your life sits outside of you. So it's very important not to have this experience of feeling trapped in a relationship. As I say, whatever happens is going to be okay if you do leave somebody. So give them the opportunity to change, work out what it is you would like to be different, give them the opportunity. Sometimes that takes time for people, but if that doesn't happen, you don't have to live your life with a particular person for the rest of your life. Okay, so that's relationships with others. In the last video, I'm going to talk about focus on communication and also boundaries. Two very important issues to finish off. So I shall see you there.